Hello, my name's Carrie, and my wife has a painting project in our basement and wants to paint 3 doors. So instead of having her tape around the doorknobs, what I will do is remove the doorknobs, and then after she's done painting, I will go ahead and reinstall the doorknobs. On most household doorknobs, there are 2 screws that hold the whole assembly together. So to disassemble the doorknob, what I want to do is loosen and remove these 2 screws, and then I can pull the assembly apart. Now normally these 2 screws are on the inside of the door so that you don't see them from the outside. So when I reinstall this doorknob, I will install it so that the screws are on the inside of the room. Okay, with the screws out, I can just pull the door assembly apart. And once I get the other half of the doorknob out of the latch assembly, I can push the latch assembly out of the door, and door number 1 is ready for painting. On to door number 2, and it's the same process as door number 1. I need to loosen the 2 screws that are on the one side of the doorknob, remove the screws, and then I can pull the assembly apart. So with the screws out, I'll just pull both halves of the assembly apart, and I'm ready to take out the latch assembly. Now this door is a little different than door number 1 because it has this faceplate on the latch assembly. So what I need to do is remove the screws out of the faceplate, and then I can push the latch assembly out of the door. On to door number 3. Now door 3 is different than the first 2 doors because on this door it had a deadbolt assembly installed. And since we don't need a deadbolt going into a storage room, when the door is painted, I will install a normal doorknob on this door. Okay, doors are painted and it's time to reinstall the doorknobs. I'm back at door number 1, and when reinstalling the doorknobs, you do everything in reverse order. So the first thing that goes back in is the latch assembly, and make sure that you get the bevel in the latch assembly pointed towards the door frame or the door won't shut. And remember here, I want to install the knobs so that the screws are on the inside of the door. So I've aligned the screw posts so that they go through the holes in the latch, and then I'll go on the inside of the door and slide the inside knob onto the shaft, and then I need to start the screws into the screw posts by hand. And after I get the screws started, what I will do is take my screwdriver and tighten the screws up. Now in this step, what I'm going to do is pull the doorknob away from the door, and the reason I do this is it makes it easier to tighten the screws. If I don't do this, then the screws are so close to the base of the doorknob that it's hard to get the screwdriver onto the screws. And once I have the screws snug, all I need to do is test the door and see how it works. And on to door 2. Notice with my screwdriver that I'm pointing to the 2 holes in the latch that the screw posts need to go through. And like door number 1, the first thing to go back in is the latch assembly. Make sure you get the latch assembly pointed in the right direction or the door won't shut. Once I get the screws tightened in the faceplate, then I'm ready to install the doorknob. Here is a close-up view of the latch assembly, and what I need to do is get the square shaft coming out of the doorknob through this square in the latch assembly. Just like that. The next step is to get the 2 screw posts through the 2 round holes that you see in the latch assembly. And there they are. Now what's left to do now is take the other half of the doorknob and install it on this square shaft. Once I get the 2 screws started by hand into the screw posts, then I'll take my screwdriver and tighten up the screws. Notice again how I'm pulling out on the doorknob as I tighten the screw. It just makes it easier to get the screwdriver onto the screw. After I get the screws tightened, I will test the door and move on to door number 3. Now if you remember, door number 3 had a deadbolt on it, but instead of going back with the deadbolt, I'm going to put a normal doorknob in this door. So here I have a latch assembly that I'm going to push into the door. The next step is to apply a faceplate to the door. And finally a strike plate in the door frame. When the deadbolt was installed in the door, it didn't have a strike plate here, so I'm going to go ahead and install one. Okay, ready for the doorknob. So I'm pushing the doorknob through the latch assembly, and then I will take the other half of the doorknob and slide it onto the shaft. Start the screws into the screw posts by hand. Tighten the screws with my screwdriver. And once the screws are snug, I will go ahead and test the door to make sure it works. And other than a squeak in the door hinges, everything's working great. Last thing I'll do is take the key and make sure the door locks correctly and unlocks correctly. So that completes this video on how to remove and replace doorknobs. If you would like to see more of my videos, please visit my YouTube channel, iSkeeper1.